Okay, hi, hello English readers, and welcome to Ladies Book Club live read along. And this month we are reading this book, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm Lydie Bureau and I'm an English teacher in France. I'm also the founder of Ladies Book Club, in which I host live readings of adaptations of classics of English literature and contemporary novels. Once a week, I meet the members of the book club in a live workshop by Zoom to discuss the chapters of the book that we are currently reading, so that you are able to practice your speaking skills and also share your thoughts on the novel and meet other book lovers. In this book club, I also tend to prioritize books that are written by women. And this month, we are reading this contemporary novel. So if you have a C1 level, you're an advanced speaker in English or reader in English, then this book is going to be perfect for you. And also, I want to also make sure that if you want to be part of the live workshop sessions, the 3 live workshop sessions that I'm hosting on 3 different Saturdays. The first session will be this Saturday. Then make sure you subscribe to the book club so that you will be able to join the first session of Daisy Jones and the Six. And in addition to these 3 workshops, I'm hosting 11 live reading sessions on Instagram. So if you want to take part in live reading, then follow me on Instagram and pop in while I'm live. And each time, for each live, all the live reading sessions are available on replay here on YouTube and also on Spotify. So if you prefer to use Spotify to listen to live readings, then I recommend you to use Spotify podcast. And the podcast is called Read in English. And personally, I really like using Spotify especially when I'm driving. It's very user-friendly, much more easy to use than YouTube. You can go back to, I don't know, 10 seconds before. It's very easy than on YouTube, and you're not distracted by the video as well. So that can be a little bit annoying sometimes. So that's why I make a point in making the videos available on Spotify as well. Yeah, so I also wanted to make sure to let you know that from today now you can purchase now the live workshop on White Teeth, the one that we've done, the book that we read last month. So now the live workshop is available on my website store. So this book is an adaptation. This one is the adaptation of this book, White Teeth. It's aimed at B2, upper intermediate level. So if you want to challenge yourself, or if you just want to read the adaptation of White Teeth, you maybe don't have the time to read the whole novel is this. So they're like 500 pages, so it's quite a heavy and yeah, a rich book. So if you don't have the time, but you would like to have an idea of what the book is about before maybe getting into the original text, then maybe you will like to read the adaptation and maybe learn more about the novel and the author by watching the workshop. And once you purchase the workshop, the 3 sessions, yeah, you will have access to those 3 live sessions on a private space. So once you purchase the workshop, then you enter your login, and this will give you access to a private space just for you, and for you to be able to watch the videos of the workshops. And also you will have all the live reading sessions accessible on my website, on this private space as well. You will have all in one place, basically. And yeah, today we are reading pages 51 to 76 of Daisy Jones and the Six. This is our fourth session, sorry. And this section is called Debut, and it is it lasts from 1973 to 1975. But before we get into reading, make sure you also listen to the podcast episode 22, an introduction to Taylor Jenkins Reid and Daisy Jones and the Six. If you are not familiar with this novel, or you would like to know more about this author and have an overview of what the novel is about, then I invite you to listen to the podcast. And make sure you leave me a comment and tell me what you think, what you thought about the podcast. And it's available on YouTube and on Spotify as well. Right. Hi, guys. Hello, Katie. Welcome. Okay, so before we get into the reading of this new chapter, I'm going to do a quick recap on the part called It Girl, the one that we read not yesterday, but Wednesday. It was a very short chapter. Here we read about Daisy Jones trying to make a name for herself as a songwriter in the music industry, and we see how difficult it is for her to be taken seriously. She is very popular. She's a it girl, as we would say at the time, and it's a term that it's not as often used as it used to be. Up to the 2000s, we would use this term for models, top models dating rock stars and etc., and being very popular and going to, you know, those festivals, very famous festivals that you may know, Glastonbury or Coachella. And but nowadays this this term is less used. In my opinion, I feel like it is not as often used as it used to be. Daisy Jones at the time was a it girl. She was very popular in the music scene in LA, mainly in LA, and very popular with boys as well. She was dating all the time. She was always around music bands and boys who wanted to be her manager. And obviously she knew what it meant, and that's a very powerful quote here. All these guys wanted to be my manager, but I knew what that meant. LA is full of men just waiting for some naive girl to believe their bullshit. So she's maybe in her early 20s, and she already sees through those guys and their bad intentions, or what they have, what their intentions are regarding Daisy. And it's not for her own good. They just want to make money out of her, or just abuse her youth, and just use her. Yeah. So she's very determined and still young and naive as well when she signed her contract, her first record deal with Renault Records, which, as you, if you remember, it's the same record label as the Six. So they're both, they signed Daisy and also the Six, but not exactly at the same time, really. Not sure about the timings here, because 73, 75, no, 70 to 74, yeah. And here the band, yeah, it's roughly 72, yeah, perhaps, yeah, a year or two at difference. Yeah, anyway, so they both sign. So the Daisy signs with Renault Records, but she doesn't really read the contract, and she doesn't realize that she is bound to them, and that she has to, they expect her to, well, we don't know exactly what they expect from her, but they have songs that they want her to sing. And even though she goes to Rich Palantino, the CEO of the record label, and she just rips off the contract. And he says to her, well, honey, very patronizing term, honey, as if she was a girl still, a young woman, not taking her as seriously as a woman, as an artist. Then he said to her that it doesn't work like that, that she signed the contract, and then now she has to fulfill this contract until it's due. So she, yeah, finds herself entangled with this record label, and she just has to go with it. So although we see that, although she's being very careful, and she doesn't listen to all those guys who want to be her manager, she still falls into the trap of some record label, or she doesn't really, even though maybe the record label was very clear to what they wanted for her, but because she didn't read properly the contract, she didn't pay attention to that. She just says, oh, I didn't want to read contracts and pay attention to who I was supposed to pay what money to and what was expected of me. I wanted to write songs and get high. So you can see here the overall thinking of her. And also generally at the time, I think she wasn't the only artist who, even bands, I guess, but when you are a band, that's the thing, that's what's powerful with bands, is that you're not one person thinking. There are going to be other people in the group who will maybe pay attention to those details in the contract, or think of reading it and looking and being more mindful about that. but she is barely 20, and 20 years old, and she wants to record an album. So she's full of hope, and of course, when there is this record label who is interested in her, she jumps on the occasion, on the opportunity. So yeah, it's understandable, but also remember, it's the 70s, and at this time, people were not necessarily thinking about the business, the music business. That it's not just about art, is that you are your own boss, and that where you creating your music, and you make a living out of it. So yeah, it's not wasn't taken probably as seriously as now. Things have changed, and it's going to be quite interesting as well to discuss in the workshop how the music industry has evolved through this time, from the 70s up to now, in the 2020s, and what has changed and what has not changed still, and still things that have to improve. Obviously, always room for improvement. Okay, so let's read debut. Okay, let's get started. So here, this section of the book is going to be about, so we're now back to the band The Six. So as you can see, we started with Daisy, then we moved on to talk about the rise of The Six, then back to Daisy again, It Girl, and now we're back to The Six. So it alternates. For now, it alternates like that. So it's nice parallel between the two stories. Okay. The Six settled into life in Los Angeles, renting a house in the hills of Topanga Canyon. They prepared to begin recording their debut album. Teddy, along with a team of technicians, including lead engineer Artie Snyder, set up shop at Sound City Studios, a recording studio in Van Nuys. I'm sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce this. In Van Nuys, California. So a place in California. Karen. The day we moved into that house, I thought, this place is a dump. It was this rickety old thing with the front door off the hinges and chipped stained glass windows. I hated it. But about a week or two later, Camila got to LA. She drove down the long driveway through the woods, and she got out of the car and she went, "Wow, this place is bitchin'." Once she said the house was cool, I started to dig it. Camilla, the house was surrounded by rosemary bushes. I loved that. Billy, man, it felt good to have Camilla back. It felt so good to have that woman in my arms again. We were gonna get married, and I was in LA, and I was making a record with my brother, and everything felt like it was gold. So remember, at the end of chapter The Rise, Billy calls back. They had broken up, Billy and Camilla, and when they signed with Runner Records, he just have one thing in his mind is to call her, and on the phone he proposed to her, and he says, "Oh, what if I had if I signed a record, if I had a contract, would you marry me?" And it's very beautiful the way it is presented, how the author tell this the story between the two of them. Okay. Warren, the drama. Graham and Karen each had a bedroom off the kitchen. Pete and Eddie took the garage. Billy and Camilla wanted the loft. So I got the only bedroom with a bathroom in it. Graham. Warren's bedroom had a toilet in it. He used to say he had his own bathroom, but he didn't. His room had a toilet just in the corner of the room. Billy. Teddy was a night owl, so we would all head out to the studio in the afternoon and stay pretty late into the night, sometimes into the morning. When we were recording, the rest of the world didn't exist to us. You're in that dark studio thinking of nothing but the music. Me and Teddy, we were knee-deep in it, speeding up tempos and recording in different keys, trying out everything. I was playing around with new instruments. I was lost to it all at the studio. But then I'd come home and Camilla would be asleep, the sheets around her. I'd be a little drunk, usually, and I'd slip into bed right next to her. It was always the mornings that I got to spend with Camilla back then. The way most couples go out to dinner at the end of a long day, Camilla and I would go out to breakfast. Some of my favorite mornings were the ones where I wouldn't even bother going to sleep. Camilla would wake up and the two of us would drive on down to Malibu and have breakfast along PCH. Every morning, she'd order the same thing, an iced tea, no sugar, 3 lemon slices. Camilla. Iced tea, 3 lemons, club soda, 2 limes, martini with 2 olives and an onion. I'm particular about my drinks. She laughed. I'm particular about a lot of things. Karen. You know, people think of Camilla as following Billy everywhere, taking care of Billy all the time, but it wasn't like that. She was a force to be reckoned with. She got what she wanted almost all the time. She was persuasive and kind of pushy, although you never really realized you were being pushed. But she was opinionated and knew how to get her way. I remember this one time she and Billy came down into the living room one morning, just a bit before noon, maybe. We were all in last night's jeans, that kind of thing. We weren't going to the studio until much later. Camilla said, "You all want to make a big breakfast? Pancakes, waffles, bacon, eggs, the whole nine?" But Billy had heard that Graham and I were about to get a burger, and he wanted to go with us. So Camilla said, "I'll just make you all burgers here." And we said, fine. So she sent Billy out for burgers, for hamburger meat, and told him to get bacon too, and eggs for tomorrow. Then she fired up the grill and came in to tell us the burger meat Billy got didn't look so good. So she'd just make bacon. And while she was making bacon, might as well make eggs. And if she had the eggs out, might as well make some pancakes too. Suddenly it was 1:30 and we were all sitting around the table to eat a brunch, and there wasn't a single burger in sight. All of it tasted great, and no one even noticed what she had done except me. That's what I loved about her. She was no wallflower. You just had to be paying attention to see it. So here it's interesting that not being said, but in the end, Camilla found a way for them to give them a healthy breakfast, a healthy brunch, and have. She was like the mother of all these those people, all the member of the group, and she was this kind of pillar that would, or the foundation of these people, and looking after them in a way so that they would eat properly and not those unhealthy burgers, and each and also the fact that she reunited everyone. Eddie. The rest of us were always gone, most of the time at least, and I just assumed Camilla might help around the house, might clean a bit. You know what I mean. I said one time, maybe while we're gone, you could tidy up or something. Camilla. I said, all right, and then I proceeded to not clean a single thing. Graham. I think Eddie took her as the maid, probably. No, but you can see that Camilla had her mind, and she wouldn't let the guys in the band mistreat her or take her for someone that she wouldn't be, or just as the girl that would tidy up the house. And yeah. Graham. It was a busy time. Billy was always writing. We were always working on some element or another, in and out of the studio, sleeping there sometimes. So many nights, Karen and I would stay up until the sun came up, working on a riff or a melody. That was Warren. Hi, Annelle. Hello. Warren. That was when I grew my mustache. See now, some men just can't pull off a mustache, but I can. I grew it when we were recording our first album, and I have never shaved it. Well, I shaved it one time, and I looked like a skinned cat, so I grew it back. Warren, very particular to his look, particular about his look. Graham, recording an album, especially a debut, it takes a lot out of you. Billy became a little obsessive. I think that's why when the rest of us might have done a bump in the studio, I think that's why Billy started doing lines every day. He was staying in the zone. So here, doing lines means that he was sniffing cocaine or other drugs, but doing lines is the expression to taking drugs and sniffing cocaine. Billy. I was intent on making sure that album was the greatest album anyone had ever released since the dawn of time. Let's just say I wasn't known for keeping things in perspective back then. Eddie. Billy took a lot of control over that album, and Eddie let him. Billy would write the songs, write almost everybody's parts. He'd come in and he'd know the guitars and the keys and what he wanted on the drums. He wasn't on Pete as much. He let Pete have a little bit more leeway. But the rest of us, he dictated the sound and we all went along with it. I kept looking at everybody else, wondering if someone was going to say something, but no one did. It seemed like I was the only one that cared. And when it pushed back, Teddy would back Billy. So here again, we see that Eddie was the one that always had some distance from the band, from Billy, and the fact that also what he was saying didn't really matter as well. Artie Snyder, lead engineer for the 6, 7, 8, 9, and Aurora. So those are the names of probably the different albums that the 6 recorded. Teddy thought Billy was the real talent of the 6. He never said that to me directly, but he and I spent a lot of time in the control room over the years, And we'd go out sometimes after the band went home, have a drink or two, get a burger. Teddy was a guy who could eat. You'd say, let's get drinks. And Teddy would say, let's get steaks. What I mean is, I knew him well. And he really singled Billy out. He asked his opinion when he didn't ask anyone else's, looked at Billy when he was talking to the whole band. Don't get me wrong, all of them were talented. I once used one of Karen's tracks as an example to another keyboardist of what he should be doing. And I once heard Teddy tell another producer that Pete and Warren were going to be the best rhythm section in rock one day. So he believed in all of them, but he homed in on Billy. One night, as we were walking to our cars, Teddy said Billy was the one that had what you can't teach. And I think that's true. I still think that's true. Graham. Billy was always wondering if we should lay down one more time, if we should mess with the mix more. Teddy kept telling us that he wanted to leave it as raw as possible. Teddy spent some real energy trying to get Billy to just be Billy. Billy. Teddy told me once, what your sound is a feeling. That's it. And that's a world above everything else. I remember saying, what's the feeling? I was writing about love. I was singing with a little bit of growl. We were rocking hard on the guitars with some real blues bass line. So I was thinking Teddy might say, you know, taking a girl home from a bar or speeding with the top down or something like that. Something fun maybe, and a little dangerous. But it just said, it's ineffable. If I could define it, I wouldn't have any use for it. That really stuck with me. Karen. It was pretty boss, recording an album with a real studio. There were techs around to tune everything, people around getting lunch, somebody to go grab your dime bag. Every day there was a large spread for lunch that got changed out for dinner. This one time we were recording and in comes a dozen chocolate chip cookies delivered by some dude. I said, we have enough cookies. And the kid said, not this kind. They were laced. I have no idea who sent them. Eddie. Just One More was written and recorded in one day when somebody sent over a batch of grass baked into cookies. The whole song, written mostly by Billy with my help, seems like it's about wanting to sleep with a girl one time before you hit the road. But it was about how we'd eaten all the grass and just wanted one more cookie. Warren. I took 3 of the cookies myself and I hid one of them for later. And as Billy is writing this song about wanting one more, I thought, shit, he knows I have one more. Graham, it was just a great time. We had a great time back then. Billy. It did have that kind of feeling where, you know, you're in a time of your life you'll remember forever. Graham. The night before we finished recording, I came home from somewhere or another and found Karen sitting up on the railing of the deck, looking out into the canyon. Warren was in the passenger chair, whittling what looked like a skinny Christmas tree out of a plastic spoon. Karen turned to me and said, it's a shame the water's up to my ankles. I wanted to go for a hike. And so I said, what are you guys on? And is there any more? Karen, it was mescaline. So probably mescaline was a drug or something. Warren, that night when Graham, Karen, and I did peyote, I remember telling myself that if the album was shit, I was going to be okay because I could make spoons for a living. That logic wasn't sound, obviously, but the thought did stick with me. You can't you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Graham, we finished recording everything in November, I think. Eddie, we finished around March. So you see here different timing here, time frame. Graham, now it was probably another month, maybe two, that Billy and Teddy were in the studio going over the mixes. I would go in some days, listen to what they were doing. I had some thoughts, and Billy and Teddy always heard me out. And then they played us the final mix, and I was blown away. Eddie. No one was allowed in the studio except Teddy and Billy. They were working on that thing for months. And then finally, we were all allowed to hear it. But it was dynamite. I said to Pete, I said, we sound fucking great. Billy, we played it for Rich Valentino in the conference room over the runner offices. I was tapping my foot so hard underneath that table. I was nervous. This was our shot. If Rich didn't like it, I was thinking I'm gonna explode. Warren. To us back then, Rich was this old guy in this suit and tie. I thought, this corporate fucker is judging me. He looked like such an agent of the man. Graham, I had to stop watching Rich and just close my eyes and listen. And when I did, I thought, there's no way this guy isn't gonna dig this. Billy, that last note of When the Sun Shines on You played, and I was staring at Rich. Graham and Teddy are staring too. We're all staring at him. Rich gets a small smile on his face and he goes, "You've got a great album here." And when Rich liked it, that was it. It was like the last bit of me that was grounded down to earth just flew off. Like someone had pulled the ripcord and I was flying. Nick Harris, rock critic. The self-titled debut was a respectable entrance into the rock scene. It was straight-laced and economical, sort of a no-frills blues rock album from a band that knew how to write a decent long love song and had really perfected the art of the drug innuendo. A little bit folky, very catchy, lots of swagger, big riffs, hard drums, and that great Billy Dune smooth growl. It was an auspicious start. After an album cover shoot, industry events, an interview with Cream magazine, and big early buzz for the album, Renault Records and Rod Reyes started planning a 30-city tour. Billy. Everything was happening so fast, and I was, you're an underdog for so long, and then one day you're not. And when you start feel real success, when you start to live large and all that, you have to stop and ask yourself if you think you really deserve it. Anyone that it isn't a complete asshole will come up with the answer no, because of course you don't. When guys you grew up with are working 3 jobs or they're lost overseas like we lost Chuck, of course you don't deserve it. You have to learn how to reconcile those two things, having it and not deserving it. Or you do what I did and refuse to think about it. That's why I was eager to get on the road, to start touring. When you're on the road, you don't really have to deal with real life. It's almost like hitting the pause button. Eddie, we were headed out on a big tour. You know what I'm saying. Getting interviewed in cool places, getting our own bus. It felt good. It felt really good. Billy, the night before we were getting on the bus, Camila and I, we were laying in bed, tangled up in the sheets. She had grown her hair out even longer by that point. God, I could just get lost in that hair. Her hair and her hands always smelled kind of earthy, kind of herbal. She used to grab rosemary branches and crush them up in her hands and then run her hands through her hair. Every time I smell rosemary, even now, it's like I'm instantly back there, stupid and young, living in a house in the canyon with my band and my girl. You see how he says, my band. That night, the one before we left, I just kept smelling the rosemary in her hair. It was then, right before I was going to leave for the tour in the morning, that she told me, oh, Camilla, I was 7 weeks pregnant. Karen, Camilla wanted kids. I always knew kids weren't in the cards for me. I think it's a feeling you get. I think you have it in it. You have it in your heart or you don't. And you can't put it in your heart if it's not there. And you can't pull it out of your heart if it is. And it was in Camilla's heart. Billy, I was happy at first, I think. Or I was trying really hard to be happy about it. I think I knew I was happy about it. I was just so scared. It was all I could see. I started focusing on whatever I could to make it make sense. I decided that we needed to get married right away. We had been planning to have a wedding sometime after the tour, but I decided we needed to do it right then. I don't know why that mattered to me. But the moment I knew she was pregnant, I felt like we had to make sure we were a proper family. So you see how the weight of institutions and the fact to get married once you have a child, those kind of traditions in this culture is even though you're a rock star, you're having this crazy life, those kind of grounding kind of life events still brings you back to real life and those bigger value that everyone has in their own way. So it's interesting to have Billy's side on the Billy's thinking on that topic. Camilla, Karen knew an ordained minister. She got his number from a friend of hers, and we called him late that night. He came right over. Eddie, it was 4 a.m. Camilla, Karen decorated the porch out back. Karen, I strung strips of aluminium foil all through the trees. It doesn't sound great in the context of all the environmental shit now. It looked really pretty in my defense. It swayed with the wind and it bounced the light of the moon. Graham, Warren had some Christmas lights in his drum kit because he liked to light up his toms. I asked if we could use them, and he gave me some guff about how he had already packed them up. I said, Warren, get me your lights now before I tell everyone what an asshole you are. Warren, it wasn't my problem. Billy and Camilla decided to get married in the middle of the night. Doesn't really want to share or to share his light. Oh, that his light were used for the wedding. It's a bit selfish here. Karen, by the time Graham and I were done with it, it looked pretty far out. Almost like the sort of place you'd want to get married, even if you had forever to plan it. Billy, as Camilla was getting dressed, I went into the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror. I just kept telling myself I could do it. I can do this. I can do this. I walked down to the patio, and then Camilla came down in a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Karen. It's not really the wedding dress that one would expect. Hi, William. Camilla, I wasn't nervous at all. Eddie, I had one piece of film left in my Polaroid, so I took a photo. I accidentally cut off their heads. You can just see Camilla's legs and her hair down her back. You can see Billy's chest a bit. They're holding hands in the picture, facing each other. I was so mad I missed their faces. But I was also tripping balls. Graham. Camilla said something about loving Billy no matter what he did. Something about them with this baby being a team. But she said it like they were a real sports team. I looked over and Pete was crying. He was trying to hide it, but it was obvious. There were tears in his eyes. I think it gave him a look like, seriously? And he just shrugged. Sorry. Warren. Pete cried the whole damn thing, the whole damn time. That guy cracked me up. Billy. Camilla said, I remember just how she said it. She said, it's us, our team, forever and always, and I will always root for you. But there was this voice in my head that was telling me I shouldn't be anybody's father. I couldn't quite it. It kept reverberating in my head. You're going to fuck it all up. You're going to fuck it all up. So you see Billy's voice constantly in his mind, just the voice of the doubt and the insecurities that Billy had at the time, things that were unresolved. And of course, the context didn't allow him as well to look back and reflect on his life and see a therapist or a psychic, so it's just keeping his thoughts in his just with him, and his battling. We can see his battling with these double with what he's doing and his voice in his head coming back and just making him doubt and think about the worst. Graham, look, as a man without a dad, you don't have the foggiest idea what you're supposed to do, and you don't have anyone to ask. I got it later when I had my own kids. It's like being first in the line, cutting down the path with the machete. Just the word dad. This word was this word that we equated with deadbeat, asshole, alcoholic. Now it described Billy too. He was supposed to find a way to make that word fit onto him, at least. When I went through it, I had Billy to look to. Back then, Billy didn't have anybody. So, yeah, he's very empathetic to his brother here, very compassionate to Billy's situation at the time. Billy. The voice kept saying, if you don't have a father, how can you be a father? That voice, that was the beginning of a bad time, where I was not myself. Actually, no, I don't like putting it that way. You're never not yourself. You're always you. It's just sometimes who you are is a shitty person. That's a very interesting thought. Yeah, I actually agree. I don't know what you feel about this, but I definitely agree with this. Karen, they kissed each other, and I could tell Camilla was tearing up. Billy picked her up into his arms. He ran her upstairs, and we all laughed. I picked the minister guy because Billy and Camilla forgot to. Billy, I remember laying there in that bed with Camilla right after we got married. And I just wanted to leave. I kept waiting for it to be time to get on the bus because I couldn't face her. I knew she'd be able to tell what was going on inside my head. If she got too good, if she got too good, uh, if she got too good a look at my face. Sorry. I wasn't good at lying to her. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. People think lying is all bad, but I don't know. Lying protects people sometimes. I lay there, the sun came, and as the sun came up, and I heard the bus pull in, and I jumped out of bed, kissed her goodbye. Camilla, I didn't want him to go, but I also would never have let him stay. Gran, when I got up in the morning, Billy was already standing there outside the bus, talking to Rod. Billy, we were all loaded up, and the bus driver pulled out of the driver, and Camilla had just run down to the front stoop in her nightgown. She'd rushed down to wave goodbye. I waved back, but I had a hard time looking at her. Graham. It was very hard to read that morning, that bus ride. Billy. That night, we pulled into Santa Rosa. We started getting ready for our show at Inn of the beginning, but I wasn't in the right mind. Eddie. Our first show of the tour did not go well. There was no reason for it to go poorly, except that we just weren't in sync the way we would have been, you know? Billy reversed 2 of the verses on Born Broken, and then Graham came in late on a bridge. Karen, I wasn't too worried about it, but you could tell Billy and Graham were upset about how it went. Billy. Afterward, we went back to the hotel. Girls started pouring into the room. There was a loaded bar there for us. I had more to drink than I should have. I had a highball glass in one hand and the bottle of Cuervo in the other. Just kept pouring myself a new glass, new glass, new glass, new glass. I remember Graham telling me to slow it down, but there was too much running through me. I was gonna be a father. I was a husband, and Camilla was back in LA, and we had just played this awful show, and our album had just come out, and we didn't know how it would do. Tequila quietened the whole thing down. So when Graham told me to stop, I wasn't going to listen. And you know, there's coke lying around, and I'm doing that, and somebody's got colludes, and I grab a few of those. Warren. We were in 2 adjoining rooms at this motel, and I was getting into it with this girl over the corner of the room. Cool chick. She was wearing a scarf as a shirt. It's always Warren is always very particular to what people are wearing and what he's wearing, so he pays a lot of attention on the look and the clothes. Cool chick, she was wearing a scarf as a shirt, and all of a sudden she jumped up and asked where her sister was. I didn't even know she had a sister with her. Somebody called out, I think she's with Billy. Billy. Sometime around 3 or 4 in the morning, I think I blacked out. When I woke up, I was in the hotel bathtub. I wasn't alone. There was a blonde girl laying on top of me. I'm so embarrassed to tell you this, but it's true. I got up and puked. Graham. When I woke up, I saw Billy standing out in the parking lot smoking a cigarette. He was pacing back and forth, kind of talking to himself, looked a little crazy. I went out there and he said, I fucked up. I fucked up it all. I fucked it all up. I knew what had happened. I tried to stop it, but there was no stopping him. I said, just don't do it again, man. That's all. Just don't do it again. He nodded and said, yeah. Billy, I called Camilla just to hear her voice. I knew I couldn't tell her what I'd done. Told myself that I would never do it again. And that's what was important. Camilla, you're asking me if I knew he was going to be unfaithful, as if that's a thing that you know or you don't know. Like it's black and white, but it's not. You suspect, then you sort of unsuspect, then you suspect again, then you tell yourself you're crazy, then you ask yourself whether fidelity is really something you value above all else. Let me put it this way. I've seen a lot of marriages where everyone is faithful and no one is happy. Billy, at the end of the call, Camilla said she had to go, and I said, all right. And then I remember she said, okay, honey, we love you. And I said, we? And she said, me and the baby. And that just, I think I hung up the phone before. I think I hung up the phone before I could even say goodbye. Karen, Camilla had become my friend. I hated Billy for putting me in that position to either tell Camilla what he had done or lie to her. Billy, drinking, drugging, sleeping around, it's all the same thing. You have these lines you won't cross, but then you cross them. And suddenly you possess the very dangerous information that you can break the rule and the world won't instantly come to an end. You've taken the big, black, bold line and you've made it a little bit gray. And now every time you cross it again, it just gets grayer and grayer until one day you look around and you think, there was a line here once, I think. Graham, it got to be a rhythm. Get to town, sound check, play, party, get on a bus. And the better we started playing, the more we partied, hotels, girls, drugs, over and over. Hotels, girls, drugs, for all of us, but especially Billy. Warren, we had a rule back then. We each had 5 matchsticks that how we invite people back to the party after. If they had a matchstick, they were in. We could give them out to any girl in the crowd we saw. Obviously, we tried to steer clear of weirdos. Rod, let me tell you what it means to manage a rock band. We're driving all over hell and creation, roadies and crew and the whole nine. And not one person, not one member of that band asked themselves how we were always stocked up on gas. End of 73 was the oil crisis. There was a gas shortage. The tour manager and I are bribing gas station attendants like our lives depend on it. I'm switching out licenses plates and no one even noticed because they're all sleeping around and drunk and high. So that's interesting here. This character, Rod, that, the manager, that brings back us to reality and out of this life of this crazy life of the members of the band just caring about playing music and sleeping around and having drugs. You see how uninterested they were about all the practical aspect, all the logistics aspects of touring. You see that it was not really in the concerns of people at the time, of rock bands, of the what it was to be a band. It feels very much like they just were interested in musicians at the time, were just interested in playing music and just get high, and not really cared about. So you see the difference probably in the longevity of some bands who stayed together through the years, who probably were more where the members of the band were more grounded, had more solid ground, and a better mindset than most of the bands at the time. And comparing to all those bands who didn't last that long because they were lacking of grounding. And you see Billy's behavior when you see that things they didn't have the time to process. You see that they just out of their hometown, they're recording in this album. He's got this girlfriend, she gets pregnant, they get married. Everything is happening too fast, too much, too fast. And obviously, when you already have things to deal with, then how can you not fall into the trap of drugs and escapism of the drugs and alcohol and girls? So you see how complex is it was at the time for this band is an example, but it probably reflects what some real band experienced at the time. So that maybe can help you to understand, and helps also me to understand how people, why so many people use drugs and or did drugs, sorry, at the time. It was also a time of experiments and all these, and a liberation also, this decades of post war as well, and strict education as well. You see, yeah, that these young people wanted a form of liberation and just live from the art and not really caring about the business in itself. Okay, let's continue. Where were we? Karen. Billy turned into someone I didn't recognize on that tour. He'd passed out in the bus with a girl under his arm, inviting girls with us from one city to another. Eddie. I mean, Billy had one of the roadies deliver tequila and colludes to him at all hours of the night. Karen. The album was doing pretty well, and our tour got extended. I was talking to Camilla about it, and she said, Karen, should I come join you guys? I couldn't get the words out of my mouth fast enough. I said, no, stay there. Warren. Let me sum up that early tour for you. I was getting late, Graham was getting high, Eddie was getting drunk, Karen was getting fed up, Pete was getting on the phone to his girl back home, and Billy was all five at once. Eddie. Warren has a pretty good summary of, it's got a good picture of what the members were doing at the time. Eddie. I was backstage after the outer show, having a few beers with the Dawn guys. Graham was with me, Karen too. Pete was waiting for his girl, Jenny. She was driving up from Boston. I hadn't met her by that point because Pete was always really private. His high school girlfriend never met our parents. So I was excited to finally meet Jenny, see what all this fuss was about. And then in she walks, tall as hell, long blonde hair, wearing this tiny little dress and these super tall shoes, legs up to her neck. And I thought, no wonder Pete's obsessed with this girl. And then right behind her, I see Camilla. I wanted to surprise him. I missed him. I was bored. I was getting nervous. I mean, I had gotten married. I was 6 months pregnant, and I was spending the majority of my time alone in a massive old house in Topanga Canyon. There were a lot of reasons I went. But yes, one of these reasons was to see if things were okay, to see what he was up to. Of course, it was. Karen. I told her not to come, but she didn't listen to me. She came to surprise Billy. She was just starting to show, maybe 5 months pregnant, something like that. She had on this big maxi dress, her hair pulled back. Graham. I spotted Camilla, and I thought, oh no. But I kind of strolled on out the door. Once I was out of view, I booked it. I figured Billy was either on the bus or at the hotel. I wasn't sure which, but I had to take a chance. I ran 2 blocks to the hotel. I ran the 2 blocks to the hotel. I should have chosen the bus. Karen. She found him on the bus. Part of me wished I could have stopped her, and part of me was glad it was going to be all out in the open. Eddie. I wasn't there, but I heard she walked in on him getting well. I don't know how else to say it. Oral sex, I guess I should say, from a groupie. Billy. It was like I'd been playing with fire, but somehow I was genuinely surprised when I burnt myself. I remember Camilla's face. She wasn't mad or hurt so much as truly shocked. She was just frozen, taking it in with no reaction. She stared at me as I scrambled to get myself presentable. The girl I was with just ran out, like she didn't want to be in the middle of anything. When the door of the bus shut, I looked at Camilla and I said, I'm sorry. That was the first thing I said, really the only thing I said. That's when Camilla finally seemed to process exactly what had happened, what was happening. Camilla. I believe what I said was, and earmuffs, but I believe what I said was, who the fuck do you think you are? Cheating on me? You think there is a woman alive who is better than what you have? Warren. I was outside talking to some of the crew guys, and I caught the tail end of it. I could see a bit through the windshield. It looked to me like she hit him. I think she had a bag with her, and I think she slugged him with the bag, and then the 2 of them left the bus. Camilla. I made him take a shower before I would say another word to him. Billy. I wanted her to leave me. I thought a lot about it, and that's what I've been up to. I'd been hoping she'd cut me loose. That night, Camilla and I were sitting in my hotel room after I got out of the shower, and I could see myself sobering up, and I didn't like it. I pulled out a bump, and I remember Camilla looked at me, and she said, trying to do? She didn't say it in an exasperated way. She was really asking me, what was I trying to do? Didn't know how to answer her. I just shrugged and remember how stupid I felt. Shrugging at a time like that, with a woman like that, this woman carrying my child, and I was shrugging like a 10-year-old boy. She stared at me, waiting for more of an answer, and I didn't have one. So she said, if you think I'm gonna let you screw up our life, you've lost your mind. And she walked out the door. Graham. Camilla found me and said she was going home, wasn't gonna deal with his bullshit. She asked me to watch Billy all night. I was getting sick of watching Billy. But you don't say no to a woman like Camilla, especially when she's pregnant. So I said, okay. And then she said, when he wakes up, give him this letter. Okay, Billy. I wake up sick to my stomach, terrible headache, feel like my eyes are bleeding. Karen is standing over me with a piece of paper. She has this pissed off look on her face. I grabbed the paper and I read it. It was in Camilla's handwriting. It said, you have until November 30, and then you're going to be a good man for the rest of your life. You got it? The baby was due December 1st. Camilla, I think I just refused to accept that he was as low as he claimed to be. I'm not saying it wasn't real what he did, what he did. Oh, it was really real. It was very real. All of it was real. I've never been so lost and scared. I was sick of it every day. I couldn't have even told you what part of me felt the sickest. My heart hurt. My stomach felt like it was gonna turn inside out, and my head throbbed. It was very real, but that didn't mean I had to accept it. Rod. I wasn't close with Camilla, but her decision to stick with Billy wasn't so hard to understand. She'd gotten mixed up with him when he was a good guy, and by the time she realized he was coming apart at the seams, she was too far in. If she wanted her baby to have a daddy, she had to fix Billy. What's not to get? Billy. Like an idiot, I said to myself, okay, I'll just take until November 30 and get all of this out of my system. Do it all now so I don't ever have to do it again. Sometimes I wonder if addicts aren't all that different from anybody else. They're just better at lying to themselves. I was great at lying to myself. Karen. I didn't stop messing around with all of it. Karen. He didn't stop messing around with all of it. Rod. The tour got extended again when we picked up some shows opening for Rick Yates. It was good news. It was great exposure. The album was off to a respectable start. Senora was climbing up the charts, but it was off the rails, going at it double time after Camilla caught him. Going at it double time, so it really falls in like even worse. He goes hard, even harder than he used to. The coke and girls and the booze, all that. To be honest, I thought all of that was manageable. Not great, but manageable. I figured as long as he wasn't hitting the strong downers, benzos, heroin. I figured as long as he wasn't hitting the strong downers, benzos, heroin, maybe it'd be all right. So he's taking drugs, pills, coke, but not, well, it's already strong, but the worst would be to fall into heroin or those, well, really hard, worse drugs than coke. Graham, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help him or whether to trust what he was saying to me. I felt stupid, honestly. I felt like I'm his brother. I should know what he needs. I should always be able to tell when he's high and lying about it. But I didn't know. And I felt embarrassed that I didn't always catch what he was up to. Eddie. We were all sort of counting down the days, 60 days until Billy has to get clean. Then it was 40 days. Then it was 20 days. Billy. We were in Dallas, opening for Rick Yates. And Rick was really into snorting heroin. I thought, I need to try heroin at least once, okay? Just what Rode was scared about, what was worried about. That made perfect sense to me, that it would be easier to get clean if I tried heroin. And it wasn't like I was going to use a needle. I was going to snort it. And I'd had opium in the past. We all had. So when I was with Rick backstage at Texas Hall and he offered me a bum, I rolled on up and took it. Rod. I always tell my people to stay away from benzos and heroin. People don't die staying up. They die when they go to sleep. Look at Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison. Downers kill you. Graham. It all spiraled from there. Once he and Yates started snorting heroin, I lived with this dread in my belly. I tried to keep an eye on him. I kept trying to get him to stop. Rode. When I found out he was with Yates, I called Teddy. I said, "We've got a dead man walking." Teddy said he'd handle it. Graham. No amount of advice or lectures or trying to chain somebody down ever stopped anyone who didn't want to stop in the first place. Yeah, quite right. Eddie, when it got down to 10 days left and he was forgetting the words on stage, I remember thinking he was never going to clean up. Billy. On November 28th, Teddy shows up at our show in Hartford. He's there backstage when we're done with our set. I say, "What are you doing here?" He says, "You're going home." And he takes me by the arm and holds on to me until we're practically on the plane. Turns out Camilla had gone into labor. We land and he drags me into his car and drives me to the hospital. We're double parked in a red zone in front of the lobby. Teddy says, "Get up there, Billy." This whole long journey, and all I had left to do was walk in the double doors. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't meet my kid like that. Teddy got out of the car and went up there himself. Camilla. I just spent 18 hours in labor with only my mom by my side. And I'm expecting my husband to walk in the door and straighten up. I understand now that you can't just fix yourself. It doesn't work like that. But I did expect it to work like that then. I didn't know. Well, the door opened and it wasn't Billy. It was Teddy Price. I was so tired and I was sweating bullets from the hormones running through me. And I was holding this tiny baby that I had just met, this girl who looks just like Billy. I decided to name her Julia. My mom was ready to take us both back with her to Pennsylvania. And I was tempted right then Giving up on Billy felt easier than trying to have faith. I wanted to say, tell him I raised this baby on my own. But I had to keep trying for what I wanted for me and my kid. So I told Teddy, tell him he can start to be a father this second or he's going to rehab now. And Teddy nodded and left. Billy. I waited for what felt like hours outside the lobby, fiddling with the latch on the door. Teddy came down finally and said, you have a baby girl. She looks like you. Her name is Julia. I wasn't sure what to say. And then Teddy said, Camilla says you have two choices. You can get your ass up there right now and be a good husband and father, or I can drive you to rehab. Those are your choices. I put my hand on the door handle and I thought, I can just run. But I think Teddy knew what I was thinking because he said, Camilla didn't give any other options, Billy. There are no other options. Some people can handle their booze and their dope. You can't. So it's over for you now. It reminded me of being a kid, maybe 6 or 7. I'd gotten really into collecting those little Matchbox cars. I was obsessed with them, but my mom didn't have enough money to get us very, very many. So I'd searched for them on the sidewalk in case any kid lost one. Found a few that way. And then when I was playing with other boys in the neighborhood, sometimes I'd palm one or two of theirs a few times. I outright stole them from the store. My mom found my stash and sat me down and said, how come you can't just be happy playing with a few cars like everyone else? Like everybody else? And then I never did have an answer for that. It's just not my way. That day at the hospital, I remember looking at the lobby door and seeing this man coming outside, wheeling a lady with a baby. I looked at him and he just seemed like a man I didn't know how to be. I just kept thinking about walking into the hospital and looking at my kid and knowing that I was the shit deal she got. It wasn't that I didn't want to be with, I wanted to be with her so bad. You have no idea how bad. I didn't want my girl to have to meet me. I didn't want that early into her life. I didn't want my kid to have to look up and see this man, this drunken, strung out piece of shit and think, this is my dad? That's how I felt. I was embarrassed to be seen by my baby. So I ran away. I'm not proud of it. That's the truth. I went to rehab to avoid meeting my own daughter. Camilla. My mom said, honey, I hope I know what you're doing. And I think I yelled at her, but inside I was thinking, I hope I do too. I've thought about this for a long time, decades. And here is what it comes down to. Here is why I did what I did. It didn't seem right to me that his weakest self got to decide how my life was going to turn out, what my family was going to look like. I got to decide that. And what I wanted was a life, a family, a beautiful marriage, a home with him, with the man I knew he truly was. And I was going to get it. Hell or high water. Billy entered rehab in the winter of 1974. The Six canceled the few remaining dates in the rest of their tour. The other bands took some time off. Warren bought a boat and docked it off the shore in Marina del Rey. Eddie, Graham, and Karen stayed in the Topanga Canyon house, while Pete temporarily moved to the East Coast to be with his girlfriend, Ginny Maines. Camilla rented a house in Eagle Rock and settled into motherhood there. After 6 days in a rehabilitation center, Billy June finally met his daughter, Julia. Billy. I'm not sure I went to rehab for the right reasons, shame and embarrassment and avoidance and all that, but I stayed for the right reasons. I stayed because on my second day there, the group therapist told me to stop imagining my daughter ashamed of me. He said to start thinking of what I needed to do to believe my daughter was proud of me. I'll tell you, that stuck. I couldn't stop thinking about that one. Slowly, it became the light that was calling to me at the end of that tunnel, imagining a daughter. Imagining myself as a man my daughter would feel lucky to have. I kept working every day to get closer to being that man. Gran. The day Billy was coming out of rehab, I picked up Camilla and the baby and we drove over there together. We drove over together. Now, Julia was the fattest baby you ever saw. It's true, I said to Camilla. Are you feeding her milkshakes? Biggest cheeks in the world, beer belly, couldn't have been cuter. There was a tiny little picnic table and an umbrella outside the facility. So Camilla sat there with Julia on her lap. I went in and got Billy. He was wearing the same thing he was wearing the last time I'd seen him in Hartford, but he had gained some weight. His face looked healthier. I said, "Are you ready?" He said, "Yeah," but he seemed kind of unsure. I put my arm around him and I said, but I figured he needed to hear. I said, "You're going to be a great dad." I think I should have told him that sooner. Don't know why I didn't. Billy. Julia was 63 days old when I met her. It's hard. Even now, 60 days, sorry, I thought, I think I read 6 days, 60 days. Julia was 63 days old when I met her. So about 2 months. It's hard even now to not hate myself for that. But the second I met her, my God, standing there at that picnic table with them, it was like someone just took an axe to me, just shattered all the crust. I felt raw in the way where you can feel everything, feel it deep down into your nerves. I had built a family. My accident and without thinking, and by accident and without thinking, and without so many of the qualities that you should have to deserve a family, I think, but I had built one. And here was this tiny new person who had my eyes, who didn't know how I used to be, who only cared who I was now. I fell to my knees. I was just so grateful for Camilla. I couldn't believe what I put Camilla through. I couldn't believe that she was still standing there, giving me another shot. I didn't deserve it. I knew it. I told her then that I wouldn't spend the rest of our life together trying to be twice as good as she deserved. I don't know that I've ever promised anyone anything as humbly and with as much gratitude in my heart as I promised her that day. I know I technically married her almost a year before I submitted myself to her then, forever and always. My daughter too. I dedicated myself to both of them, to raising this girl with my whole heart into. As we got in the car, Camilla whispered, "It's us, forever and always. Don't go forgetting that again, all right?" And I nodded and she kissed me, and Graham drove us home. Camilla, final speech of the chapter. I think you have to have faith in people before they earn it. Otherwise, it's not faith, right? Right. And this is the end of the chapter debut, which meant the debut album, the first album, of the 6. and the roller coaster ride of Billy getting into rehab, getting sober from drugs and alcohol, and welcoming this little baby girl, and finding purpose in his life, and yeah, going back on the right track of his life, and yeah, promising Camilla and this little girl to be a good man, yeah, for them both. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this live session. This was quite a long one. We had, yeah, around 25 pages or so. I hope that you managed to stay with us. I encourage you to subscribe to the book club membership to have access to the 3-part workshop on Daisy Jones and the 6th for free. Hi, Kitty. I hope that I see that you stayed through. It's quite late in the evening. It's past 8:15 almost. I think we did maybe an hour and a half session. I started at yeah, yeah, an hour and a half. Yeah, it was a long session today. Remember, you can purchase the live workshop of White Teeth from now on my website store. This way you have an idea of what it's like to be part of Ladies Book Club and how the workshop look like. And I wish you a beautiful end of the day. Katie, I'll see you tomorrow for the workshop of Daisy Jones and the 6th, all the chapters that we read this week, sorry, not today, but all the chapters we read this week. I can't wait to discuss the book with you. So guys, yeah, share, join us. And otherwise, I will see you on Monday for session 5. We will read pages from pages 79 to 82. So quite a short chapter here. It's going to be a very quick session. And it's entitled First. That's going to be our next read. Well, have a good evening. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.